Hey internet, Swag here, and it's good to see that you've made it to part 3 of our tutorial. This part will be all about the logic behind the system, so it might be a bit more dry than the previous two, but if we stick with it, we'll be able to build ourselves a thing of beauty. Let's go! Alright, now to hook everything up, we are going to require a switch that is a bit more customizable than our standard button. For this, we will find in our palette, under other chips and second page, one state machine and two states. Now what a state machine allows us to do is, well, dictate and control states. So every state needs to be connected to a state machine before you can connect it to other states. With this one connected, we will wire this one to there and this one to there, and if you've got it proper, it should start flickering. Now, just for the sake of things, getting us another button, we will be able to control this while we figure things out. This state is gonna have our fish swimming. And this state is gonna have our fish hooked. When it is swimming, we wish in this state for it to be playing, and when it leaves the state to stop playing. Same for this one down here, that one there. When it is hooked, we want our other animation gizmo to play, or exit to leave. So now we have our two states with the connection in between that we can use to switch things over. Now I want there to be two possible ways for it to go back from being hooked to swimming. One is getting our fish in the bucket in time, and the second is if we do not get our fish in the bucket in time, it will unhook and fall back into the water. So to have two possible ways of bringing it back, we are going to get ourselves a Boolean chip from our math chips, configure that to be an OR chip, and wire the red pin up to there. Now for the sake of diagnostics, this one is just going to be there for a little bit, and it will still be able to switch around. Now one of the possibilities is for it to unhook. For that, we are going to use a randomizer chip to get our time, and a delay chip to unhook it after a certain delay. We will hook it up so that when it enters the hooked state, it will generate a signal from anywhere in between, and this works in ticks, which are about 1/10 of a second. So I think anywhere in between 1.5 seconds and 5 seconds. So every time that will generate a value. It will also get a signal in the delay chip. And this signal will be delayed by the value on our randomizer chip. So now, if it is hooked, it will randomize a delay, send that into there, and as you can see, it has already returned back to swimming again. So because of our delay, it jumps back after a set time. We need to be able to put our fish somewhere. Bucket! Ooh, another thing that is somewhat important is that we hook our reset pin on our delay onto our on enter swimming state pin. So that if there is still a signal in here that is waiting to be transmitted, but the fish has already been brought to the bucket, then it won't go off after you have hooked the fish all over again. Trust me, this is... Just trust me, this is how it works. So with our bucket right here, there are a few more things that we can wire up. One of them is, as you remembered, we made the trigger volume on top of Hank's face detect a bucket, so that if it is hooked and brought to the bucket, we can make it so that the game recognizes, hey, the fish has hit the bucket, and that makes it return from being hooked to swimming, pretending like the fish has been put into the bucket and there is a new fish in the water for fishing. Another thing is, because the trigger volume on our fishing rod detects the trigger volume on our fish, we hook that one up to the switch between swimming and hooked, so that if our trigger volume on our rod touches the fish's face, it switches over the animation and dangles it from the hook. And then, if we make sure that we have a bucket environmental with the tag of bucket, we can bring our fish to our bucket, and that should reset it as well. Now, technically, we have a minigame, but it is a bit unclear to see when exactly the fish unhooks, when it hits the bucket. So what we want to do is make ourselves a score system. For that, we are going to get ourselves a combinator chip and wire it in on itself. Now, every time one of these other pins gets a value, it will hold that value and add it up. And to make sure that we get a 1 every time we input something, we will wire that through an end chip and wire that up to the trigger volume on our fish that is set to detect the bucket. So that goes to the start of our end chip. Now, anytime that trigger volume touches the bucket, it will send a signal here, reduce that from the item ID of the bucket to a 1 through the end chip, add that on our combinator chip, and that will output a score. So in other chips, we get an output chip, wire that to there, and now we can see if we start getting a score. There we go, we caught a fish. And we caught another. Now, the slight issue with this system is that, well, it's an output chip. It's a chip. If you can't see chips, you can't see the output chip. So what we are going to do is we're going to get ourselves in Gadget's second page of other gadgets, a text gadget, and configure that to say in message 1, fishes fished, double dot, and now we put in a little squiggly line or squiggly line, and what this will do is this little bit of code will take whatever number we feed into our red pin, that's why it's R in the middle, whatever number we feed into there and display it on our text gadget. So now if I press OK, this should say fishes fished 0, because this is getting a value of 0. But if we wire it up to the combinator that is keeping our score, that 0 should turn to 2. There we go. Now I'm just gonna configure this to, I think 13 is the color of white. Yeah, that'll look nice in the bucket. Put this flat and move this over to our bucket so that when you look into your bucket, it shows the exact amount fish is fished. And now we can have fun fishing our fishes. I hope you were able to follow along, but even if you only learned one thing you didn't before, that is still progress, and you've earned my Circuiteer seal of approval. Now I will publish a map for this tutorial where you can build along with your own make pen, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested. But for now, I hope to see you in the next one, and may you use your newfound knowledge wisely. Bye. Animate a rock. There's a rock. There's an animation gizmo. Wire it together. Edit, add a frame, press play. Doesn't go anywhere. You know why? Because rocks don't move. Silly question.